Slowclap, the developers of Absolver, are backed with a new project.
Sifu.
This time around, the project has enjoyed a lot more success and is being played by streamers everywhere.
Look that. When I see that meter, that means you know Kung Fu.
Only a couple of days after release, and we already have people doing perfect runs of the game. Unfortunately, the game is marred by 2 points. The first being on the Epic Game Store as an exclusive. A lot has been said about this platform already. It lacked for a long time the basic features like a cart, and it tries to make up for it by giving away free games. So you can expect this game to be held hostage on the platform for 6 months to a year. As an exclusive, Epic pays a bigger cut to the devs to compensate the sales loss on other platforms, but the stigma around them might not be worth it. If you weren't already in the know, Epic Game Store is a distributing platform like Steam and Good Old Games. PC games not having physical releases anymore mean that vendors like this are your only means of getting games. Unless you procure them on the high seas. The issue with Epic is that they simply did not have the time and effort invested into them like the two aforementioned. The time parameter doesn't stand anymore actually now that I think about it. It's been about 5 years now and they still lack basic features. They recently added a cart. Beforehand, if you bought anything in a rapid succession, you would be locked out of making purchases. Instead of actually getting better, they did 2 things. First off, giving away free games each week. They've been doing this for about 3 years now. The game selection is nice, but if everything around doesn't work, it still hurts the game no matter how good it is. Launching a game to not get controller support isn't encouraging. The worst is that if you launch it through Steam, your controller will actually work. That's something even GOG is guilty of. Their previous game, Absolver, was a game based around the idea that by fighting other players, you could learn new techniques. Most of that would be done through multiplayer. Of course, the game had no such player base for the idea to flourish. The title featured a single player, but from what I gathered, it was pretty bare bones. Again, it seems that NoClap has a habit of making the same mistakes in terms of game design. This time around, you can also add lesser business decisions. Now, not only is Sifu burdened with its association with Epic, but they also have a terrible price tag. Now, the question of price and what is worthy of your money might sound subjective and personal. However, I'm not one of those critics who only live in their head and take everything as subjective. While it does have such a facet, a quick look at other games on the market can give you an idea of how games should be priced. Indie games such as The Messenger or Katana Zero are priced around $15 to $20 depending on your region. I'm thinking USD and CAD. I'm not counting Australia because everything there is poisonous and $100 overpriced. 3D indie games and games of the middle market are priced around $20 to $30. Think Mortal Shell. I do admit, however, that it's not always consistent. A game like Ollie Ollie World is $30 USD and 40 CAD, despite the fact that it's 2.5D and doesn't seem to boast much more in terms of feature or production value than its predecessor. Despite this, I still find Sifu overpriced. It starts at an outrageous $40 USD. It's about $50 for the deluxe edition, and that's just USD. It starts at 44 CAD for the regular edition and 55 for the deluxe edition. That's just the PC price. On PSN, it's 54 regular and 67 deluxe CAD. I'm bringing up all these numbers because it's a huge contention point about whether or not Sifu is worth it. As someone who plays games like Resident Evil, a short experience doesn't bother me. Their previous game, Absolver, was a game based around the idea that by fighting other players, you could learn new techniques. Most of that would be done through multiplayer. Of course, the game had no such player base for the idea to flourish. Yes, it might be finished in 10 hours, but you get extra modes, costumes, characters, and endings. In the end, 10 hours becomes 20 or 30, especially if you're going for that S rank. Sifu
Sifu.
is a difficult game. A difficult game not simply asking the player to pull through, but also to be able to be perfect. Unlike a Devil May Cry where you get penalized with your score, you lose time. Each subsequent playthrough becomes harder as your failure carries over. If you fail too much, your character gets older. Fail enough, and you die of old age. You have to get better, or the rest of the game becomes impossible. In the end, it has very little to offer outside of this. Like Absolver before it, Sifu really creates value through sheer difficulty and repetition. It boasts a beautiful art style and a great soundtrack, but it lacks in terms of features. Characters, weapon, modes, it doesn't seem to offer much. Even a game with seemingly higher production value like Hellblade is priced at 33. I'm not saying all of this to discourage you from buying the product or discourage the studio, but Slow Clap seems to have, at the very least, an interesting product, a thing that genuinely looks like art made with tons of passion, being marred, unfortunately, by poor business decisions. If it wasn't on Epic already, I'm pretty sure less people would be pushed away. So far, it unfortunately falls into the category of wait for a price drop or buy in a year when it's not on Epic anymore. The difficulty in itself is not a problem as long as it's well balanced. I don't mind. I'm not a game journalist. However, the studio has difficulty creating an environment where their product can flourish. However, the studio has difficulty creating an environment where their product can flourish. Even without the looming shadow of Epic, they seem to be lost in their own passion. A bit more replay value wouldn't hurt.